it's telling me we're live. And there it is. Everything looks a-okay so far. I don't know if anybody can hear us or if anybody's here yet. So I will just give it a little bit of time. While I do that, I will pull up the thing I'm supposed to be looking at. Do you want to tell them what you have in front of you?
The microphone?
No, or I don't know if your drink's right there. It is.
My drink?
Yeah.
Josh made us umeshu sours.
Which is a Japanese cocktail made using plum sake.
Hunger the cat is here.
What's up, Hunter the cat? I am just Hunter the cat, my bad.
Oh, sorry, Hunter. It's too small.
It's too small? Oh, on the screen, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have it full screened on the computer screen, it should look fine. Obviously, you have it on the phone in front of you.
Oh, that's sour.
It's called a umeshu sour. So, can you tell the audience who we're supposed to be talking about this episode? Well, I guess I should do the stereotypical introduction I'm supposed to do, which is, this is the Hentai Literature Club. If your first time here, we use the fundamentals of literary criticism to look at one of the most popular forms of popular literature on the internet, which is hentai, or as it would be called in its own country, just ero doujinshi, which is erotic fan-made work, even though that usually applies to things that are made as parodies of other things. So there are, for example, erotic Dragon Ball Z doujinshi. You seem surprised by that.
I'm not surprised. It's just.
You think it's weird?
Yeah.
You have no idea how many young men first realized that they thought girls were pretty when they saw Bulma. But yes, the artist, sorry for being a little slow, I'm trying to type and everything at the same time. The artist we're talking about today is Shiwasu no Okina, and specifically the text we're going to be looking at, because this is an artist-centric couple of episodes, is Class Trip to the Nudist Beach.
Hi, Daestra.
And Daestra's here. I suppose I should mention that this particular artist, as well as this text, was recommended by Daestra. He gave me 2 recommendations. One of them was this one, Class Trip to the Nudist Beach, and the other one was the hilariously titled Go Ahead and Fill My Heart Penis. And I was looking at a bit of the Discord. If you want to join, there's a link up there on the screen somewhere. There was a little bit of chatter about this text before the current live stream.
Hi, Darryl.
In which I was told it would have been better to have selected Go Ahead and Please Fill My Heart Penis. And the reason I picked this one was not only because it was popular. Shiwasu no Okina has a lot of they have a lot of tankobon, which are just published collections of stories. This one was one of the more popular ones on multiple websites, and as it was pointed out on the Discord, this one has actually been turned into an animated series, which I think has 3 episodes. Would you mind giving the club a brief summary of this text?
There's a classroom that is taking just a class trip, right?
Yes.
And they go to a nudist beach, and all the girls have sex with one of the boys.
When I first started reading it, I assumed it was going to be like, oh, like they're gonna. It's mentioned about how like it's gonna like realign their values, this class trip.
I thought it said it was for friendship.
Yeah, for friendship. I think specifically they say skinship, which is something I wrote down in my notes. But I was assuming that it's like, oh, they're all gonna, all their feelings and whatnot towards each other is gonna be exposed by this trip, as they interact with each other. and it ends up turning out that all the women end up sleeping with one guy instead of like different couples forming, which is what I assumed was going to happen. Do you have any general thoughts about this work? I got the impression that this one was not one of your favorites.
There just wasn't much to it, was there?
I don't know if that's true. I think there's some stuff that you can extract from this. So Daestra mentioned on the Discord that Shiwasu no Okina has one of their favorite art styles.
The art was, yeah. I can't complain about.
Something I noticed about the art was like there's like a lot of little, I guess almost tender details in erotic scenes. Like I noticed like the characters would like kiss each other like on the neck or the back and stuff like that.
There were moments too where they're when all the girls are in the tent and two of them are doing it. They're like, oh, don't they look cute? Giving what is it? Something like giving each other love, not just sex, or something like that. Still though.
Yeah. Darryl described it as a gentle forced orgy. And hello, King Thunder. But yeah, you've given a pretty basic summary of what's happened. So what happens is, it seems like this is a class that goes to like a private academy. This isn't a public school, and it's run by ambiguous European foreigners.
At one point, I think it's mentioned they're speaking Finnish.
Yes, but it's also she says "ja" a lot, which is like a German thing.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's like yes, so JA. Mm-hmm. And it's never explicitly stated where they're going to this nudist beach, so it's just kind of
up in the air.
Yeah, just generally European.
Yeah.
So you didn't find this one particularly interesting for you because it seemed to you to be mostly gratuitous sex.
Yeah.
I believe Glenn mentioned it in the Discord, but I would also agree with it that this is like a very male-centric gaze kind of text.
Okay.
Would you agree with that, or what do you think would give evidence to that kind of thought about it?
I guess I would agree with it because it seems like it would be something somebody would fantasize about, like to go with their class to a nude beach and everybody has sex with just you. Yeah.
I don't know if you read the bonus chapters at the end, but the rest of the guys do not get left out. They don't all have sex with the rest of the girls, but they get.
But they have sex with the older teacher's friends.
Yeah, the teacher and their friends, as well as just other people at the beach, because they get pointed out to a swingers cove on the
part
beach.
Of the beach.
Yeah. So I think there was a little more substance than you may have seen on your initial viewing, but as I was writing my notes, something I thought that was kind of funny that I started noticing was that there was almost the way the story is structured. As I was starting to make my notes in my head, it started to click that a lot of events in the plot of the story could very easily be aligned with the hero's journey as postulated by Joseph Campbell. Are you familiar with the hero's journey cycle?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like the most popular way people usually reference it is Star Wars, because George Lucas purposefully wrote Star Wars to emulate
the Lion King?
Yeah, and the Lion King, to emulate the hero's journey. It's actually part of Disney's writing process. Is they give like the writers a copy of a simplified copy of the hero's journey to help them guide the screenwriting process for their movies that they make. At least they used to.
Mm-hmm.
So like Lion King and Mulan and a lot of that is gonna pretty easily align itself with those expected story beats. The thing that made me think that was that like a lot of heroic stories, if you want to call this story heroic, a lot of heroic stories start off with the hero leaving the known world, and whether if you want to protagonize the story, who would you say is the protagonist?
Well, the guy.
Yeah. No, what is it? Naotatsu?
I didn't get their name. I'm not gonna lie, I was not reading too much. I was kind of scrolling past it. I got to a point where it was just like, okay, I get it. So I just kept going through it.
Oh, to answer a quick question, Chaz is doing all right. Like, obviously, we're still kind of social distancing from one another. So right now, it's just Anai and I doing this, and he is indeed still rocking his long hair. Darryl commented the fact that the strip was meant for a girl to hopefully get with a guy and it ends up with them all fucking says to me for sure a guy wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and thank you for the comment about our D&D campaign in Innistrad. But yeah, so I mentioned this when we talked about tags as well. That you remember when we were talking about like onsen as a setting?
Yeah.
That situations seem to be able to evolve in the way they do because characters go from a world they're used to and a world they're comfortable with to a world that is unknown or foreign to them. In this case, literally going from Japan to Europe. And of course, there's almost like a kind of joke about Europeans compared to Asian people having more loose morals and different, like I guess, different sets of values.
There's no nudist beaches in Japan.
Yeah.
But they are there, or according to them.
And so they're literally going from the realm of the known, the realm of the classroom, to the world of the nudist beach, where they are literally told that their values are going to be realigned.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just start going to the pages where I actually wrote my notes, because we only have this one text and it's all one big sequential story.
This one has actual people in the very beginning.
What do you mean? Oh yeah, the picture at the beginning of the
Yeah.
Tankobun. You want to talk about that real quick, or just what you thought about it?
I was just surprised.
Yeah, so obviously you have the cover and you have like the spine and all that, and then they have pictures of actual Japanese porn actresses dressed in the roles of the girls. I don't know if that's a promotion with an actual live action version of the hentai, but that does happen in Japan.
You get live actions of the hentai?
Yeah, so like I said, this one is really popular, Class Trip to the Nudist Beach, because it was turned into an anime adaptation. It also happens sometimes where erotic manga gets also turned into live action adaptations.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that picture with live actresses is meant to be some kind of promotion or not.
Because they do that same thing that's done with the drawing, where you get one panel of clothed and one panel right next to it with the same pose of naked.
Yeah. So I pointed that out too. Why do you think that's something the artist does? Like at the end of a sex scene with each female protagonist. There you have that shot of them in ecstasy, and then it's contrasted with them in their school uniform.
I don't know. I figured maybe it's because, and I mean, I don't think I'm reading much at all into it, but I think it's just because they're pretty much naked the entire time.
Yeah.
And some people's things is the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought maybe that was just
it was
a way
like
to
just a
end.
fetish thing.
But I have no idea. What did you think?
I know sometimes it can be seen that maybe we're looking too much into it, but I do think there's like a contrast between like some like nudity can often be used as like a simile or a metaphor of like seeing somebody's true self. And so to me you could almost read it like a contrast of seeing somebody's true self with like who they are every day. So obviously you and I pass strangers every day, and it's weird to think about, but we will almost never see those people naked. And we're also
it's weird to think about, because why do you want to see everybody
just
around
because
you naked?
you're thinking about people naked. That can be weird in and of itself to some people. But also you'll also never get to know that person.
I thought you were gonna say you're never gonna know what those people's thoughts and feelings are in general. Like you're never gonna know what that person.
You'll
lives
never
for,
see their quote unquote naked self.
Their personality or anything. It's just like people walking around.
Yeah, and even with the people you interact with day to day, whether it's like the people you went to school with or the people at work, like how well do you really know those people?
Well, it's like, I don't remember where I read it, and I think they explained it really well. It's like everybody is their own little universe, and a lot of the universes are all kind of slightly, close together with the people and some people's universes are really, really matched up, and some universes you're never going to get close to, and it's really just, the spectrum of you get maybe just a little part of their personality in life, but there's all that other stuff you don't get to see.
It's like you said, you felt like the story was mostly a lot of sex, but I think at least with every female character you see them have sort of two sides to them. There's a side that
well, they explain what they're like in regular day-to-day life,
and then there's some aspect of them that gets brought out through sexual intercourse with the protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
is this causing any gears to start moving about what you think about it, or do you still have kind of a flat opinion about it?
I don't think. I mean, I saw the story parts of it. I just didn't think they were very. I mean, I think it's what it is. It's doing exactly what it's meant to do. I can't judge it. It's it's just not very deep, which is fine. It's not. That's not what it's for.
Well, I put down on pages 8 to 10 that you can see the contrast between how the boys are reacting to getting to the nudist beach to how the girls react. And I thought that was an interesting little detail as you see their faces. It's like
It's to be expected,
yeah.
For one.
Do you think you would have had a similar reaction to that situation? I don't know if I would have been excited.
I wouldn't have gone. I would have been like, all right, deuces, this isn't legal.
But there is that sort of going back to Joseph Campbell and my weird way of looking at this story through the lens of Joseph Campbell was there is in Joseph Campbell's monomyth there is the call to adventure where you are being called to leave the ordinary world for something extraordinary or supernatural, and in a way you can see that we're going to a nudist beach and you're going to have your values changed, or we're going to change the way you look at things and everybody's going to get closer to each other. Or you can get expelled. Like obviously in real life, this would never happen. This would be super illegal. There's no way any teacher in any country is gonna get their students to go to a nudist beach as part of a school trip. But there is still the choice that you could have been like, yeah, I'm not. This isn't happening. They all could have been like, yeah, I'd rather get expelled.
Mhm. They all could have just gone to the dean and been like, this is just against.
The dean's her dad.
Still,
Yeah.
just because that's her dad.
It seems like I think the implication though is that he would have thought it was fine. Because he grew up here. And it's not weird to him.
I mean, but, okay, so if we move on a little further, when she's telling the class, everybody's fully clothed, and she's telling the class, oh, hey, we're gonna go to this place. And she asks our hero,
Mm-hmm. The protagonist.
Yes.
If you want to use a less loaded word.
Like what is it? I think she says.
On which page?
What is nudism? 12.
Oh yeah, okay. I actually did write down notes for that part
and
too.
He explains it. That's not exactly where it stems from. I looked it up.
The Hussites appeared in Bohemia during the 15th century after separating from the church. One of their ideas is the culture of nudity, which gained widespread acceptance in Germany. Nowadays, nudism consists of taking off your clothes and taking part in various outdoor activities.
Which is...
What did you find out about that? I also kind of looked that up a little bit, because I was like, is that really where it comes from?
Did you find out otherwise?
I read it wasn't just Hussites, but also Adamites. It's a movement in Christianity called Christian Naturalism.
Yeah, and they do holy nudism.
Yeah.
Where
it's very different from what the kind of nudism they're talking about.
Because they're trying to connect to Adam and Eve.
Yes.
But then it also goes back way more because, and this is something I was thinking about when I read that. I was thinking the Olympic Games used to be naked.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I wrote a couple things.
In Japanese culture, it is normal to be naked around people sometimes. For example, at I think hot springs.
I was going to say bathhouses and all that kind of stuff. So it can go way further than just what he said. But how did he have that right there? Like, were they studying nudism?
He mentions he's a huge pervert. That is our perverted protagonist.
Yeah, but just because you're a pervert doesn't mean you're going to research on what a nude is.
What are we doing right now?
How it comes out. You calling me a pervert?
I think
yes.
I have made the statement before that I think everybody, even in the absence of not having one, has a sexual aspect or being to themselves.
Can we go to the chat? There's a bunch of things and
yes.
We're missing a lot.
I'm sorry if we're talking too much and not interacting enough. Yeah, I see what Darryl was saying to me. It was showing the fact in relation to the contrast between naked and not naked bodies, that they were attractive and them being naked confirms the fantasy. Daestra said, I think it's interesting how quick the main characters outside of the main characters tent, everyone adapts so quickly. Outside the tent, everybody's just hanging out without mockery and stuff. Oh, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to King Thunder Nighty. Darryl also says, to me, this is the fantasy of the forced revelation of oneself, with the lens of the typical Japanese, this is invigorating and taboo thing to do. It also allows the men to fulfill their many sexual fantasies and the women to be more open about their sexuality.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it allows to fulfill the sexual fantasies, but in real life too, that would be very taboo to actually be doing anything in public and that kind. I'm pretty sure that's a rule, isn't it? To not
Have sex at a nudist beach?
Is it not?
I think in real life mostly yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think real nudist beaches, you're not allowed to have any kind of sexual intercourse or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. With yourself or others.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's even in America at movie theaters where they used to show porn, you weren't supposed to masturbate in the theater.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
As is most famously known because of the actor who played Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that thing where he was masturbating in the movie theater? Right?
Yes. At a pornographic movie theater.
Yeah. It's I guess again more taboo play people are doing stuff they aren't supposed to do. I guess yeah, that is true.
And how quickly they adapt, though, I think human beings in general quickly adapt to their situation, even if you think you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are forced to be nude around people and you're already at a beach,
I mean, it's part of our survival.
Yeah, there's nothing. What are you going to do? You can't put your clothes back on and leave. I mean, you can, but if you make the decision that you're not going to do that, you might as well enjoy yourself to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I found, it wasn't just Hussites, it was Adamites.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, the Adamites too.
It's unfortunate that Yusuf isn't here because I do not have my my usual history man here to help me confirm things without me having to put the effort in. But on that topic, do you think there's any element of Christian naturalism in this story, or do you think that it just is using that as like a jumping off point, or like just like a fun little historical fact?
I think so. I think it's just trying to relate it to, oh, this would definitely happen in school. See?
Yeah.
I don't think it's because it's evolved so much from just being that
Christian naturalism.
Yeah, it's evolved to so much more. That probably a bunch of people that are nudists don't even know about it. Maybe. I mean, just like so many other things that kind of stem from that, and then just progress to being something else.
If there is one tie to that idea that is in the story, I think it's just in the aspect of nudity in general being pre-lapsarian humanity was not ashamed of their nudity, as in Adam and Eve before they partook of the fruit of knowledge, because there was nothing shameful about their bodies that they could recognize.
Mm-hmm.
It's not until you have like knowledge of your surroundings almost that you suddenly feel shame about your nudity.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the only connection I would be able to make between that and this story is just
how the teacher keeps saying, like, don't cover yourself.
Just the idea that like there's nudity isn't as shameful or weird as taboo as we like to think it is. And I think that almost goes into like every other character in the story is just like, well, I'm already naked, might as well enjoy myself somehow.
Mm-hmm. So what's the point of making them all go into a tent to take off their clothes when they're already going to be naked?
I guess so they have like a place to change and they don't have to change in front of everybody else.
I guess.
I don't know if that poem on page 13 was actually anything. I didn't have a chance to look that up. But on page 13 she says, I hope that genuine skinship, naked skin against naked skin, will turn you into true friends. Are you familiar with what skinship is?
I don't know.
I think skinship is typically used in reference to Japanese and Korean culture.
Okay.
Where friends bond with each other through physical intimacy, and it's not necessarily like kissing each other, but like being able to like sit on your friend's lap or hold your friend's hand or put your arm around your friend. It's like the act of physically touching your friend is seen to be something that increases the bond you have with one another, and it's not necessarily sexual in nature.
I'm assuming that's just tied to how human contact is pretty vital to people's like moods and just survival and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Here, well, I was also thinking like that monkey experiment, where they deprive they compared the mental development of two monkeys, one who was forced to feed from like a wire cage, and one of it the wire cage had like a blanket on it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that idea? That by being naked we get to know each other better. There's nothing between people. No clothes.
Well, it completely eliminates a physical barrier.
Yes.
An actual physical, tangible barrier. So I would assume it's trying to mimic, like, okay, well, we're taking this off of you. We're getting you out of your comfort zone. We're taking off this blanket of yours, per se, what you're taking comfort in, and it's putting you in an uncomfortable position, hopefully in order to get over, to get over your preconceived ideals. Am I making any sense?
Yeah.
And be able to have a deeper connection is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you're talking about the tents, and we get to the tents on page 14,
Mm-hmm.
where there's a tent for the boys and a tent for the girls, and they're getting nude, and you see kind of like the conversations that the two of them are having with each other.
Mm-hmm.
In a weird way, it almost, I know this is probably just me putting like my own knowledge of things onto the story, but it made me almost think of like, because I noticed this on my second reading of the story. So obviously there's the two changing tents, as well as the third tent where the boys and the girls are meant to help each other get over like any sexual urges they have.
Mm-hmm.
It almost made me think of like religious rituals, where a lot of times men and women are separated and then reunited in like a separate building, or sometimes there's like in Gnosticism where you are initiated into a new area and are expected to come out of it reborn once you exit it. And I felt like that almost reflected where the character, particularly the protagonist and all the female characters, go from the beginning to the end, where they go from, this is weird, I don't want to do this, there's something wrong with me because of my sexual desires, and at the end they come out of that tent transformed with a new perspective, almost echoing what their teacher says at the beginning of it, where she says it's gonna change your values and what you think about things.
They're so transformed. They're all like, okay, well, everybody got a turn. Like, who didn't get a turn?
And it was all the guys. Going back to page 12, the teacher says it's an experience that will totally change your sense of values. I want all of you to have this experience as well. And then we get to page 15, which is where you see all the dicks.
All the different kinds of dicks.
Yeah. What did you think
I
about
wrote that. I was kind of
I
surprised.
also wrote that down.
I was
And
like,
I was
whoa.
like, wow, just straight up dick shots.
I was like, whoa, look at all of those dicks. They're all different,
Yeah.
like a snowflake.
Every penis and everybody's body's different. But
To a certain point.
Yeah, but you didn't look at the notes at the end. At the end of the book, after the main story is complete, he actually shows off his initial character design sketches, and it's kind of impressive to see how much effort Shiwasu and Okina put into the character designs, because he writes down the notes where he's specifically trying to make all the bodies different from each other, and so he even points out things like where their pubic hair starts and ends, as well as like body types and stuff like that. And even though none of them interact in this story, all the men have different body types and different penises.
Yeah. I didn't get to that very end. I was tired of it by then.
What made you tired of it?
I don't know. It was just too in your face.
It was too erotic and not enough romance.
I don't know if it just wasn't enough romance. I don't think that's...
You mean like, I didn't mean romance in like kitschy kind of romance way. I meant more like story development.
Yeah. Where was the character development in general?
I think in the male protagonist and all the female protagonists, I think everybody goes into the tent with some kind of, I don't know how to say it better, but some kind of hang up with themselves and what they like. At least when it comes to the female protagonist, and they come out of it with a different perspective.
But I guess it's not, what I'm saying is it's not a very deep character development.
Yeah.
It's something like, I don't want to be
Is there
naked, and it's like, I guess I'll have sex, sure.
So what notes do you have?
Yeah,
I'm currently looking at page 16. Oh, do we have some good comments?
I don't know.
Daestra said, none of the characters are cookie cutter. That's what I like about their style. Darryl said they can relate to you, Anai. And Yusuf says that tent got more overused than any of the ladies. Ah, my resident historian is here.
Good. So you want to know about my notes?
But before that, Yusuf, what did you think? If you read through the whole thing, Yusuf, what did you think about the relationship of nudism to the Hussites? And then we also brought up the Adamites. I'm curious if you have any knowledge of like the historical relationship between like Christian naturalism and nudity in Western Europe. But yeah, what about your notes? Oh, on page 17, you can see the teacher's body is on full display.
Yes.
And at the end of the notes for the character design, Shiwasu no Okina points out that he's like, well, the character is meant to be European, her body is American style. And I thought that was funny because he also got a chuckle out of that when we were reading Mille-Feu.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, one of the female protagonists' body is pointed out to be American style.
Mm-hmm.
So between that and this, what do you think American style is to the Japanese?
Bigger. I mean, to put it as simple as I could possibly. Bigger.
Particularly in the bust.
Mm-hmm.
Usually big butts.
Even, pretty everywhere too.
Yeah.
Like tall, like how tall they are, and just bigger.
Especially in like neckbeard communities, they people like that get mocked because they have a fetishism for the Asian body, or what they think is a traditional Asian body, which is going to be like small, cute, petite, long black hair. And then it's almost funny that also in Japan there is a fetishization of the American body type of tall, buxom, wide-hipped, big butts. But yeah, what were you about to say?
You said wrote a couple things.
Oh, nice. Daestra said, Pisame has character development and is way more interesting, but again, Okina has a tendency to put lolly in things that I just straight skip those chapters.
Yes, there's a point exact where they say.
Oh,
and
wow, the small girl in the class.
I always pointed out that she looks like a middle schooler.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is this necessary? I always point it out.
I think it always goes back to like the youth fetishism in Japan.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay.
I've read this manga several times, but all I can say is that it's a solid fap. I've never attempted to look deeply into it beyond that point.
Yeah, I agree. That's what it's does exactly what it needs to do.
But we have to look deeper.
That's the thing. If you're trying to read into it a little more.
Yeah. I am trying to make sure I don't do I am putting what I think about this story into it. But I'm trying to see at what points can I extrapolate thoughts from this.
Mm-hmm. Daestra, the American style trope, I feel my culture being appropriated.
Darryl said, in general, bigger body shapes is American, or the real word foreign. The abuse that word is in a lot of this work makes sense, doesn't mean I care for it much. Even if this work is definitely a solid fact, to quote Yusuf, there is always something that you can extrapolate just from reading it and thinking about it. And I think that is true of any text.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
Not that I would think less of anybody for only looking at something on the surface value, especially if it's meant to be pornography as it is here.
I guess my notes mainly consist of things where I was like,
noting things about the plot, or
not even just like things they're doing or things they're saying, specific things they're saying, and I just go, the ones that make me go, what? Like the middle school thing.
Yeah. When it's mentioned with two characters.
Unnecessary.
So mostly what I wrote down on my notes for like pages 18 to 17 is that you're just looking at the contrast between what the rest of the class knows about the girls in the class and their nude bodies.
Yeah, it goes person by person, right? And kind of explaining what they're like.
Who is this person? What do they like? And now they're naked.
Now what they look like.
So the first one up is Taniguchi, who is the female class rep. Vice class rep, the one who organizes everything, Taniguchi Akiho. now completely naked in front of everybody, and she's the one that convinces all the girls to come out of the tent and join the class.
With her mismatched boobs.
What do you mean? Because one's going up and one's going down?
Yeah. Boobs don't do that. Normally.
And you've clearly never seen High School of the Dead.
No, I haven't. I haven't.
And then we get the
like shot of all of the girls.
All of them in their different states of distress.
And the boys all acting like they're fangirling over them. I was pretty sure something was gonna... As soon as they didn't all have erections, I thought they got roofied.
They got roofied. I think Daestra was the one that mentioned it could have been something... They mentioned a specific drug. So skipping all the way to the end of the story, it's a big plot point that throughout, while the male class representative is having sex with literally every girl but one in their class, the rest of the guys desperately want to get in on the action, but none of them can get an erection.
And they do something real gross where they start trying to masturbate in front of everybody.
And they rightfully get scolded.
Disgusting.
Yeah, and it turns out it's because the female class representative and the male class representative all agreed that would be inappropriate of anybody to get sexual urges while naked, and so they drugged all the boys in the class with it has some kind of funny name at the end, but I don't want to skip all the way to the end just to get it and then have to skip all the way back.
Yeah.
But I think Daestra was the one that suggested it could have been something like saltpeter, which kills erections. Going back to the comments. Mangas of this sort are like a machine gun. It needs to fire off into as many wide-reaching sexual fantasies as possible. In that regard, a younger lady almost always appears. Darryl, because the general sense of other is strong here, because I've seen translations where they simply use explosive bodies, not foreign. I get why they do, but that bugged me a lot. Spark I can handle, but when it is nearly every other page, I start to grate on me. Back to Shimino, I think if we want to look deeper into this particular work, we can say that the event of a nude beach is meant to remove the barrier of tension that exists among all the students. I said something similar at the beginning, and they did. By revealing their largely vanilla desires and quirks and having them in the open, the characters are revealing not just themselves in the nude, they are revealing their egos and personalities. I saw it as a coming-of-age story for each of the girls, as well as the lad himself, as it seems like this teacher knew everyone's character flaws and used this as a method to break those flaws. Which I think is a pretty good, succinct summary of like the theme of the story, is that it's nudism as a means of removing that barrier, specifically on people's sexual inhibitions. Page. Yeah, we have to turn the air off so you can't hear the fan buzzing in the microphone, or the air conditioner buzzing in the microphone. Do you have anything to say between like those pages 18 to 27, where it's kind of the character introductions and their personalities?
No, I mean, we already pointed out how they show them clothed and naked, and I thought we covered it. You think we covered it? Do you have more notes on it?
Nope, mostly because that's what I wrote, just page 18 to 27, contrast between girls' personalities and their nude bodies.
Yeah.
And then I think right here, page 22, as you see some of the guys are able to get pretty comfortable about the situation pretty quickly.
Or they're chatting with them, and
I didn't immediately assume that there was something wrong with the guys because they couldn't get an erection. I at first assumed that it was just nervousness.
I assumed so because it's a hentai.
Mm-hmm.
I figured if they were going to get an erection, it would have happened immediately.
Because I think for a lot of guys, they'd like to think, they'd be like, oh yeah, I'd get a boner right away. I think a lot of young men especially would be too nervous to get it out.
No, in real life,
yeah,
definitely. But it's a hentai.
Yeah.
So,
You're saying it is removed from the standards of reality.
Yeah.
It's the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah. Just like, what's his face? I forgot his name already. Main character.
Oh, Natatsu.
Just keeps going and going and going as if that were a possibility.
That is believable up until maybe the third to fifth time. That a young man could go that many times in a row. But he goes like at least 2 times for each girl. So he busts the nut at least 12 times or 24 times. I'm sure somebody could do a read through of this manga and put the nut busting counter in the corner somewhere. Did you have any particular character designs with the female characters that you liked, that you thought were cute or anything? Or any personalities that stuck out to you?
I thought, oh shoot, Unose? Page 26. I thought she was cute.
Oh, the girl whose dad provides the drugs.
Yeah.
The cool aloof girl. And then there's page 27 is the airheaded girl in class laughing at all the guys' penises, which is probably pretty realistic.
Yeah, I agree. But also, they say she often is showing her underwear in class. How does she not notice that? Oh my god. She should be noticed. Somebody should be telling her something.
That her skirt keeps getting folded up.
Yes, one of her friends should say something. They're not real friends. Maybe they do need the skinship nonsense.
And then I think page 28 is the why don't any of us have a boner, and then you see the class rep with the massive raging erection. So at what point did you find anything interesting in this story, other than what we've already started talking about, or just any pages or panels that you started to think about? You gotta give me something to work with here.
I mean, from 15, I skipped all the way to 36 just to point out the middle school thing. The black girl is compared to a middle schooler. I don't know, I guess I found it a little interesting that when they're first in the tent, they don't actually do anything
sexual,
overtly sexual.
No, like nothing penetrative.
Mm-hmm. That they're just standing next to each other and he's just looking at her. That was interesting.
Daestra, also page 40 is another part of a recurring thing that shows up in literally every club we've done so far, being that people should feel ashamed of having natural urges. I was actually about to get to that because I think that's also where I kind of started writing my notes. Well, it starts more around here on page 30.
He does it, and then one of the other girls does it too, where she goes, "Do you think I'm a slut just because she likes him?"
Yeah, the class princess. Well, she says, "Do you think I'm a slut because I like muscly dudes?" And I think about men's hard bodies all the time.
Yeah, that doesn't make you a... But no, I agree. And that does pop up in all of it.
Yeah. There's always like a... Not always, but almost always, in a lot of hentai that we end up reading, there's always a sense of, I should be ashamed about these urges that I have. And I think that, at least in this text, to me, that's like the focal point in a lot of these characters' arcs is I have desires and I'm ashamed of them. And then a lot of that gets resolved through being naked around each other and...
Not just being naked.
Yeah, and having sex with each other.
Yeah.
Shimino said, "What I enjoyed about this work is that there was a feeling that the women were being liberated rather than enslaved to their desires. I had a feeling like this after the class went back to school. They'd have been a fine group of buddies." Darryl also said, "Oh, they didn't notice only the gal girl had a relationship beforehand because she was broken up, she was cool with it. Because that can imply things too if there are some cultural backgrounds or characters like that. Protagonist Kun, lol. With this one being so short so far, maybe we could entertain a live read of a different story. To be fair to Sky, the work itself doesn't give her or anyone a lot to work with." Which is a fair point. We'll just start doing a live reaction to the animation, I guess. Because I watched a little bit of it.
You did?
Yeah, because Glenn posted it in the Discord. Once again, join the Discord, hang out with us, and you can talk about hentai all you want, or tabletop games if you're some weirdo who comes to this channel for tabletop games.
You know what? Was it Yusuf said that there's the... Wait, no. Who said
the aspect of liberation to it?
I didn't even think about that. That is true. They're there. They're not necessarily there for their own choice in the beginning, but they definitely do take, I guess, the opportunity and definitely run with it.
I think only the first girl is kind of coerced into it, and after that it's voluntary for each one.
But then you find out she wasn't really coerced into it. She wanted it the entire time. What? Oh, that made me sound.
What?
She wanted it the entire time.
She technically did. She did. That was very, very manipulative of her.
Yeah, it was incredibly manipulative.
At least the guy had somewhat noble intents that he was like, I didn't think I could control myself. I took twice as much as everybody else did. Because he had the Natatsu, the main character, admits that.
Yeah.
He was like, I was worried the most about myself and my own shortcomings and failings. It's not like I didn't give this to myself. I took twice as much.
So that's full on, now thinking about it a little more, that's full on just, like he was trying to get something done, to not have something done to him, and she did, what's that word I'm trying to say? Well, she cheated him out of what he wanted to do. Like, she took away the decision that he had made.
I wouldn't say he is exempt of the ability to make a choice.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
But he made the choice to say, I need as much help as possible, and I'm going to take twice as much because I know myself and I know my body. And the girl just kind of took that decision he made away from him and said, well, fuck you. I want to have sex with you. So you're not gonna take the precautious steps that you're trying to take.
She also doesn't get what she wants at the end. She gets to have sex with him, yes, but she doesn't get the relationship she's hoping for. Because he's like, I have a special bond with everybody in our class now.
Yeah, that is
It's
true.
unfair of me to say that we're in a relationship when we all have this special bond now.
We're all in a relationship.
This is going to be a bit of an aside, but that made me think of that song by Steel Panther, Community Property. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I don't know if I know that one either.
Because I know you get a laugh out of Steel Panther. But for those of you who don't know, Steel Panther is a parody heavy metal band like Tenacious D, except they parody 80s heavy metal, so like Motley Crue and Poison and stuff like that. And there's a song called Community Property where the singer's telling his girlfriend, it's like, I love you, but I have this special thing and it's unfair of me to not share it with the world. The special thing being his penis. Were you about to read some of the comments?
Yeah. You should read them because I feel like I don't get all of them every time.
Okay. Darryl, because sexual liberation for typically females is considered wrong or even evil sometimes. That is not a Japanese-only way of thinking. A lot of cultures do that. Example?
Pretty much all of cultures.
How many of you sexualized princesses do you see in comparison to sexualized queens? Part of my terrible grammar and spelling this whole time? Yeah, don't worry about it. Shimino said, I feel so called out right now. I sexualize all nobility. And my roleplay characters have shagged far more queens than princesses. My point? There's always more princesses than queens. And she didn't have the balls to just confront her, hell, even just seduce him.
Yeah, she didn't.
She was relying on his own sexual libido to need to be taken care of.
She was relying on putting the whole, charge on... But, because imagine... if he really doesn't want to do this, right, and he's taking the extra steps not to be like that, it could have gone a whole different way where everybody laughs at him and goes, oh, look at you can't control yourself, and she did it out of a selfish reason, and if it hadn't gone well for him, he could have been in a position where he was actively trying to avoid that could hurt him. Just because she wanted to bone him. She's a predator.
If it makes you feel any better, like I said, she doesn't exactly get what she wants at the end.
She got the sex. She got enough.
She gets upset when the rest of them are getting on him, though. Remember when the other two girls are kissing him at the same time? That he's inside of her. Anyways,
yeah.
On page 29, you get the entrance into the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Joseph Campbell would say, at the crossing of the first threshold. So truly leaving the world that we understand and know in order to go into the world of the unknown, the world of the gods, the world of monsters. Joseph Campbell himself says those don't have to be literal monsters.
It could be Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah, no, it could be your sexual desire as a monster.
All I'm saying is that you're comparing... I keep connecting it back to the Lion King and the steps of the hero in the Lion King, and I can't stop making the comparisons, and I'm sorry.
There we go, page 30. The purpose of this school trip is to make relationships between the boys and the girls much, much friendlier, so when the boys are in a pinch, the girls will have to help them get rid of their erections. That is the end of chapter 1, where the two class reps are are entering the tent.
Mm-hmm. On page 37,
Yes.
one of the girls that's staring at the penises says, or is thinking, or I don't know, mumbling, who knows. Wow, this is the first time I've seen one besides Papa's. The size and shape are all different. Maybe because they're soft, more roundish, something else, the hair. Does that mean she's seen her dad's penis only erect? Yes.
None of them are erect, though. I think she's comparing...
Exactly, that's what she's saying. They're all different to my dad's. Maybe it's because they're soft. So that means... Put it together, Jess.
I don't think that's what it is. That's also the character who ends up being pointed out as being sexually promiscuous. Because she's the one where they're like, oh, she used to have wild sex with her boyfriend. And she's like, it wasn't like that. She was like, it was just normal sex.
But this is
yeah.
Just taking this into consideration.
Yes.
It seems like she's only seen one penis before. She only compares one. She says, wow, this is the first time I've seen one besides Papa's. They're all so different. They're all soft. They're all way different than my Papa's penis.
I don't think soft in this sense necessarily means
she's only seen an erect penis from his father, Josh.
From her father.
From her father.
I do not think there is enough evidence to back up this theory you have.
Tell me where you see no evidence to it. Because I only see evidence.
Just because they're more roundish and soft does not mean that she has only ever seen her father's erect penis.
Maybe because they're soft. It says, maybe because they're soft. ...
Are you sure that doesn't just mean texture?
She's not touching them.
Yeah.
Does that mean she's touching her father's penis too then?
You can witness softness without touching something. You can look at a teddy bear and be like, I tell that it's soft.
No hard penis looks soft. You're not going to change your mind.
I'm not going to change your mind, but I also disagree with you.
This is gross. Why are you making me read this? I'm just saying, one of the tags should be concealed incest. Just saying. What do you guys think in the chat? I want somebody to prove me wrong.
Fighter for Friends, what's up, nerds? Darryl says she is a coward, less of a predator, mainly in the sense that it wasn't malicious.
Yeah.
And then Shamino and Darryl are laughing. Shamina's pointing out she might just be peeping on her dad. What if she's just peeping on her mom and her dad, and she could be. She's peeping on her mom and her dad when they're going at it.
But that's just those are just thoughts. There's no concrete evidence for anything other than she has seen his penis.
Hard.
Hard. There is concrete evidence that she has seen her dad's penis. Hard. There is no concrete evidence to anything else.
Yeah, but almost everybody's pointing out that they have perhaps seen their parents naked before.
I haven't seen my father naked ever.
Most kids, when they're children, will take a bath with their parents at least once.
Maybe it's because I'm a child of divorce.
I don't know what to tell you about that part. Daestra also doesn't see it that way.
What did I ask? I asked what you think about on page... What page is it? 37, where the girl is saying she's only ever seen her father's penis before, and that they're all different to his because they're soft. So I'm saying she's seen her father's penis hard only. It's incest. It's implied incest. It's implied incest. Okay, should we move on?
Yes. Do you have any notes up until page 40, which is where I'm about to jump to?
Up until page 40? No.
So starting on page 39 is you have the two class representatives in the tent. And then you get the big reveal where now Tatsu says, I am a gigantic pervert. At the end of the day, that's all I am. I always act serious in class, but that's actually because I'm desperately trying to hide the fact that I'm a pervert. If I don't control myself, all I do is look at girls all day long with my crotch swollen. This is my true self.
And I'm jacked because I work out so that I don't have to have an erection the entire time.
Yeah, I'm a libido monster. I'm not a class rep. I work out so much to calm my sex drive. That's why my body's gotten all muscular. That's a real thing some people do. Like I can't remember what documentary I was watching, but it was about like a about Christian people and about like really conservative Christian communities where the men are expected to be celibate up until they're married, obviously. And one of them was a guy where he was like, I have these desires, I look at women, and the only way I can get out that physical urge to do something about it is to work out. So in a weird way, there might be some validity in the I need some kind of physical release. I'm a young man going through puberty, and I don't want to be improper. There's something wrong with my strong sexual desires, so I work out all the time.
Yeah, no.
There's also, it's a little off topic, but there's like some interesting correlations or connections between physical exercise and sex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever heard of a orgasm?
Yeah, I was about to mention it.
Yeah, so it's possible that while working out, that stimulating your abdominal muscles can actually cause you to have a unique form of orgasm. Or you also have things like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Pumping Iron talking about how being in front of the audience and flexing is like he's coming every time he's flexing his muscles.
I don't remember that part.
You never watched Pumping Iron?
I watched it with you, didn't I?
No, it might have been a different documentary.
That's not the one where he says milk is for babies?
We didn't watch the whole documentary. I just showed you that clip.
I thought we did.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember that anyway. But no, I do know about all that stuff. And I think we've talked about that before, about men working out to get kind of, not their sexual desires over with, but, you know, out of their mind maybe?
So Darryl said, my parents are divorced too. Also, my dad will randomly walk around naked when he gets bored. I'm not going to lie. Shimino said, I'm going to say that it's a subtle situation, going back to what you said. Darryl, he's not bored, he's in the zone. He's just bored and he wants to be more free. And Shimino saying, is this manga propaganda from the Japanese government to break down conservative tendencies and increase the population? Possibly. Although I've mentioned it before, but I've never made you read one of them for the podcast. But there's like a trope or subgenre of hentai that takes place like in the near future, mm-hmm. where Japan's population is decimated.
Oh yeah, you have told me about it.
And so men are given like a license that allows them to have sex with anybody they want.
Mm-hmm. That comment also reminded me of the pandas that are showing porn.
No. Funnily enough, once nobody was looking at them during the pandemic, 2 of the pandas finally had sex. They just didn't want anybody to see them do it. They're much like people in this manga, they are ashamed.
Yeah, maybe they just want some alone time. Okay, and everybody's just staring at them, wishing they do it, and the pandas just want some alone time. Daestra just said, didn't Gesundheit say that at some point or something?
Oh yeah, Gesundheit makes a joke about it in the one we read. I can't remember the exact name of the tankobon. But yeah, this is the start of it where I feel like you have that there's something wrong with me kind of aspect to it. I have sexual urges and they're improper and I need to control them.
So out of all the, not sex scenes, but you know, each moment each girl has with him, this one was maybe my favorite.
The one where he's just kind of masturbating while looking at her?
Yeah.
And then he starts kind of prodding her?
Yeah.
It starts off with him just kind of like smelling down near her crotch and
a little weird.
Playing with her pubes.
It was a little weird to me. Like, why was he pulling her pubes? I mean, I guess maybe some people are into that. That just seems a little painful, but okay. But it seemed, getting past the creepy part, a little more maybe erotic than the other parts.
Well, it's because it's implied that he tries to control himself, but it doesn't imply that he actually has sexual experience.
Yeah.
It's almost like him actually taking the time to discover the female body of his classmate. Yeah. And that this might be his first, well, it probably is his first time seeing pubes up close. It's his first time.
Which is why he felt the need to pull it.
Yeah, it's his first time with breasts in his face, so he puts them in his mouth. And his hair's still combed. I noticed as the chapters went on, his hair went from being combed to just kind of being in his face.
That's true, I didn't think about that. So then after her two girls go in to do stuff with him because then a third girl's gonna go in that likes him, and
Yes.
they were like prepping him for
Yes.
her.
Well, yeah.
No, you go. I thought that was weird.
Well, I was going to point out on page 44 when he's looking at her breast.
Mhm.
That is, to me, that whole little panel of him looking at the breast and the nipples slowly getting hard as his eyes open is just a better reaction than I see out of some non-erotic manga.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot about the artistic potential within a lot of these artists.
There's some attention to detail in this.
Yes.
I like it.
It's very active. It's also very different compared to, like, because it's fresh in my mind, like Milfew.
Mhm.
Like, there's not as much elements of, like, smell and heat that you see in that artist's work. A lot of it almost seems like reactions that people's bodies have, as well as, like, small touches. Like, I noticed there's, like, a lot of elements of, like, lips being shown up close, and, like, the tension between, like, two body parts, like, about to touch each other. There's a lot of eroticism that's developed in that act of the moment right before bodies touch each other.
Mhm.
So you were talking about how once he finishes masturbating against this girl's stomach,
Did you have anything to say about that?
not in particular, but I think what you're thinking about in general just goes to the escalation of sexual acts
Yeah.
that happen throughout the story. Because it starts off with the first sexual interaction has no penetration within it.
Mhm.
And neither does the second, but it goes from, like, using somebody else's body to masturbate to the second girl, I think, gives him, blowjob. A hand job and then a blowjob.
And they're all preparing him for the one girl. That's what I didn't get. They're saying
For, like, the princess kind of girl.
Yeah.
The class princess. Well, you have the girl with the braided hair. And she, I think, is just trying to protect her friend. She's like, I know my friend likes you.
But protect her in what way is what I didn't get, I guess.
I guess she doesn't want him to have an erection when she sees him because she doesn't want her to have sex with him and, like, something bad happen to her, I think is what it is.
But then the second girl that goes in
It was like, I don't mind that she's gonna have sex with you. I just don't want you to be bad when you do it. So I'm gonna have sex with you first, so you know how to have sex.
I just thought it was weird reasoning to.
They're just really good friends.
I don't know if that's what really good friends do. Okay. Okay.
One friend is like, I don't want my friend to have a bad first sexual experience, so you can get that out of the way with me. And the other one is like, please don't give my friend a bad sexual experience. I'm gonna try to get all your sexual tension out of the way first.
Uh-huh.
Darryl said, Marine Chan a Go-Go is a nicer one of that genre. Oh, the men get a cart to have sex with whoever. Zettai Junshun Kyoshi Hozukuri Kyokakushu is the first series I recall that had this man gets a license to bang story. I think we actually talked about that one time. Because I think that one got animated by the guy who did, like, Taimani Nasagi and all those really... You remember the one time we talked about actual animated hentai? Oh, CAFCON Tom's here. What's up, Tom?
What's up, Tom? Tom, did you read it? We could always call you and just put it right next to it if you want to say something.
Pull up the Discord chat. Or I guess we also have each other's numbers. We could literally just call each other. Yeah, Darryl said, it's the whole practicing sex with another person before you do it with the person you like, which makes no sense to me. Trying to find more to talk about with this Dojin, LOL.
Read what? The Dojin we're talking about.
But the whole practicing sex thing actually was it's very different to how it happens in this story. But I believe Victorian England, like, men were expected to be good performers sexually, but obviously it was improper of you to deflower another woman of the same class as you. I think I've mentioned this before.
I think so. I think we may have talked about it last time.
Yeah, it's the idea that's like the men can't be bad at sex, and they don't want to be nervous the first time it happens because they need to take charge in the sexual encounter, but you can't ruin, quote-unquote, another woman of the same class as you. So what you do is you go to the middle ground and you have sex with a prostitute, and that's okay because she cannot go any lower than where she is.
Not a prostitute, Josh, a sex worker.
An erotician. as I said it last time.
Well, do you have anything else to talk about? Because my next points are pretty...
Conclusive or what?
No, they're not conclusive, but they're not very deep or anything like that.
Well, just kind of going through the story, it's like obviously there's an escalation of sexual acts.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the next interesting one is the girl that the two friends are trying to protect or trying to help. Because obviously you have the escalation of sexual acts from like masturbation to hand jobs to blow jobs to actual penetrative sex, which is what happens with the tall girl Keika. And of course there's that funny moment where he's like, practice sex. That kind of thing is unforgivable. No, no way. I'll refuse, sternly and properly like a man.
Never do that. Then
And the next panel is him inserting into her.
I found it interesting that he used a condom only with some girls and not with all.
They did what you hate.
Yeah.
The whole, it's a safe day. You don't have to wear a condom with me.
There's no such thing as a safe date. PSA. There's no such thing as a safe date.
Oh, and the tall girl gives him a little nibble on page 64. Yeah, like I said, it's little attentions to detail like that I thought that really raise the erotic stakes within the story when it comes to like the actual purpose of this text, which is to elicit the passions.
Did you also notice that the condoms
inside the passions
didn't really fit him?
Oh yeah, that does. Well, that only really happens at the end, I think.
No, it happened all the way through. I'm pretty sure.
Because at the end, when he's about to have sex with the girl at the very beginning, the condom pops off because she confesses her love to him. And
none of them go all the way down.
Oh, okay. That's what you meant.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I thought you were talking about, like, girth-wise. I mean, if they bought Japanese condoms, he might be having a problem. They make that joke in a lot of other doujinshi about certain men of certain size needing quote-unquote American-sized condoms. That happens in Gesundheit. The time stripper Reika?
I don't remember them, if I'm honest.
And that's the one where the girl gets the ability to stop time, and she's trying to find the guy with the perfect penis.
I remember that.
And the guy with the perfect penis turns out also got the ability to stop time. But I was going to say let's go to Sayaka Sumori, which is the girl that you said is interesting because she has the "Do you think I'm a slut?" on page 69. Yeah, it's like, what do you mean? I'm sorry, I guess I should explain. About a month ago I saw you getting dressed for PE. I saw what good shape your body's in. Ever since I saw it, my heart hasn't stopped racing. That chiseled form, those muscles, it gets me excited just thinking about it. My heart's beating like crazy during class. Even during break I'm totally preoccupied thinking about you. Until recently, I never really thought about that much about boys, but now I'm constantly thinking about boys' bodies. That's why I think I'm a slut. So in other words, you like my physique, my body turns you on. Then I think it's fine if you're a slut, then be a slut. This body of mine has an overflowing sexual drive that I've tried to calm down by working out, but it's not enough. I just get too excited over women's bodies, so we're not so different. Then it's really, you don't think bad of me for being slutty, you don't think I'm the worst. And it's like, well, we're both interested in each other's bodies, which just means we're healthy. Okay, then let's start by touching each other. I think that's, to use Joseph Campbell again, that's sort of like the transformative moment of the character going from being ashamed of who he is and his sexual urges to actually, I guess, consoling somebody else who has similar feelings about themselves, where I'm always thinking about boys and their hard bodies. Is there something wrong with me for doing that? And he's like, no, well, maybe this is just healthy, normal sexual attraction.
I guess the turnaround to me was too quick for it to really be actual character development. It feels like if it were that easy, then these were preconceived notions.
Yeah. I mean, you say it hasn't been that long, but he's had sex with 3 people so far.
Yeah, but in the span of how much time? He hasn't had sex with 3 people, though. He's had sex with 1.
I guess with 1.
Had penetrative sex with 1.
So you're making the argument that oral and other kinds of sex.
No, that's why I specified. He's had penetrative sex with 1 of them.
What about a Texas-sized condom? That should be a thing. The idea is that immediately after menstruation and the eggs are flushed, you have a few days period where it's terribly unlikely you'll get pregnant, hence safe days.
No, but that's not true. You can get pregnant on your period. Like, it's still a possibility. in any of the times. It's a possibility always.
I don't think he's arguing the point. I think he's saying where the idea comes from. He says, in Japan, luckily for men, they always catch the love of their life immediately after menstruation. Yeah, in the context of pages, the passage of time comes up short. If you actually look at the index, though, this story would have been developed over the course of about 2 years, because the story was published in different magazines over the course of 2014 to 2015.
But we're not taking it as how it's
You're talking about
published
literal time.
in story time.
Yeah.
Talking in story time.
What if you think about something like Mrs. Dalloway, though? Mrs. Dalloway also takes place over the course of one day, yet there's significant character development, but some of that is because of people's who they are beforehand.
That's what I guess my point is all that it took for him to do that switch was having penetrative sex one time.
I think the other 3 girls lead up to that, though, or the other 2. It's like he could not have that experience if it wasn't for the initial sexual awakening with the first 2 girls.
It feels too quick, though.
Yeah.
Because Mrs. Dalloway, yes, but it's even in Mrs. Dalloway, there's more time. It's a whole day.
Yeah.
This is just, it can't be more than a couple hours. I'm just saying. Well, what else do you have to point out?
Oh, on this one?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just reading the chat real quick.
Oh, okay.
In the context of, probability, it's not a possibility if he's infertile. Big brain is what Tom said.
That is true. But if he's wearing a condom, then that's not the case.
Maybe he doesn't know.
I mean,
also, the condom cases in this one look kind of funny because it looks like they're in like little cups.
little K-cups?
Yeah, little
pudding cups?
Yeah. Like that bit on page 72 when she grabs his butt and she's like, boys' butts are really firm.
I guess that was kind of funny where she's touching him like that.
I mean, she's interested in his hard, muscly body.
But it's also a little childlike.
What,
Are
you saying there aren't people who have sexual experiences like that, though?
No, yeah. But
You're saying the way she's doing it?
The way she's going about touching him is kind of like a child with something that they've never encountered before, touching it to really get the feel of what it is.
Is that not what some people do, though?
I guess so. I'm sure it is.
And then we have the thing Anai doesn't like on page 74. He's about to go for a condom.
It's just safety. I don't know, something I thought that was funny, and it's way later on though, is on page 124. All the girls are basically talking about him and his sexual abilities.
Yeah. AKA every man's dream.
And that's why they're all going like, okay, well now it's my turn. You know, the boys are just being ignored.
I'm not sure if it's one of the tags on this one, but that almost seems like an NTR cuckolding kind of moment.
I don't think it was.
Yeah.
But now I get it, where all the boys are...
They're all watching, they're all watching, they're all hearing it, and they're looking at the girls, and they're like, oh my god, he's having sex with all of them. And they're like, why won't my dick get hard? Yeah. What was I trying to think of? What do you think of that weird little connection I've made, though, between Joseph Campbell and this hentai dojin? Would you argue that is just me putting my academic background onto something that isn't necessarily there?
I think so.
But at least with Joseph Campbell, though, he points out that nearly every story can fall into this.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think it's a very basic format that it's very easy to replicate, and it's very easy to just naturally fall into that. So, even, I don't think it was purposefully made into that, definitely.
But using the story in general, do you think there is some element of transformation within it, going from being ashamed of nudity and sexual encounters to at the end where everybody's like, maybe we know each other a little better?
Yeah, I guess so. There is some sort of character development, even though it's not very deep or big or anything.
I'm willing to concede to that. Well, what were you about to say? Was it just your next comment was on page 124?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing in between you would like to talk about?
I'm sure there is, but how long have we been talking?
Who knows?
I can tell you. for an hour and 15 minutes so far.
I'm a little surprised.
I told you, I think while you may think there was no depth at the beginning, I think there is at least a kiddie pool amount of depth here. I'm just looking at also the fact that it's not like those girls talked about life or their feelings, they just kind of fucked. They have their paragraph of backstory, then motive, then results. Tom said, anime logic, hand-holding, eye-locking, kissing gets you pregnant, hentai logic, nothing can get you pregnant. Darryl said, they're high schoolers, oh god, YouTube is going to come down hard on us now. The thing about translations, Glenn, is they always end up getting translated to being college students. Sorry if this one turned out to be a dud, guys. I thought it would be more like how a Mizuruke episode was, but yeah, they got lucky in the end. Shimino said, the ultimate NTR. I've loved this girl for 5 years, and now I need to watch the unabashed class pervert banger. Tom said, y'all consuming NTR? I don't even know you all anymore. What Josh is saying is not untrue, but I feel the author didn't mean to give you that feeling. Yes, there is, but in a meaningful way. No, 74 minutes. The series is long. 75. I mean, even in a kiddie pool of little death, you can still drown in it. Good point.
Especially if you're putting your own twists and turns into it, the way you read it.
But here, I've pulled up something so we can have a little game with this story, because I feel like we've not necessarily exhausted what we can say about it, but I think we've said a lot of the main points that we're going to get out of it, and by going like character through character arc, we might end up retreading some of the same territory.
We will end up doing that. Okay,
so right in front of me, I have Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey in front of me. I don't have my actual book with me, but I do have the chart. And I want to see if you can think of, from your reading of the story, how this lines up with it, and we can see if there's some kind of...
You could just retell me The Lion King. I'm kidding, okay. I'm ready.
So at what point of the story would you consider to be the call to adventure? And I'm going to see if we can think of something more academic to say about it by doing this.
Okay. The call to adventure would probably be the teacher announcing they're going to the beach, no?
Yes.
Okay. So, but since we're doing the specific, I think specifically it's the time where he tells both of the student reps, not the whole class.
So you're saying the call to adventure happens at the end of the story, even though chronologically it happens before the story proper.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Because that's where the action begins. That's where they start doing the getting ready for, getting the pills ready and all that stuff.
Yeah. And there is commonly an element of supernatural aid within the story. What would you consider supernatural aid that occurs in this story? Something that is meant to help the protagonist.
The opposite of the Viagra pills. Those pills.
The boner be gone pills?
Yeah.
I think it's that, but I think also the tent itself acts as a sort of supernatural area that allows people to release those sexual energies that they have.
That one's probably better. But, because then if all the other male students didn't get that pill, then it wouldn't have been the same story at all.
Yeah, I mean, supernatural aid and objects like that can be more than one thing.
So maybe both. The teacher is the magic. Tom, supernatural equals drugs.
He's got that big dick energy. I wanted to point that out, that in a lot of monomythic stories or a lot of traditional myths, most heroes or protagonists within myths have some sort of supernatural power or ability.
So his
Whether
is big.
I was going to say Luke Skywalker has a lightsaber in the Force. This guy has a big penis and an unhuman amount of stamina when it comes to sex.
What does Simba have?
He's a lion. I guess he's ordained with the nobility of kingship. He has the ability to lead and to rule and to assert power over evil.
Okay, what's next?
The Threshold Guardians. What is it that stands before the hero in the moment of transformation? In a way, I would argue that... I guess you could also argue that this is... in a monomythic story, a lot of times you have the call to adventure, but you also have refusal of the call where the hero tries to not go on the adventure. So you have Luke Skywalker, for example, going back to his home and being like, you know what, maybe I don't want any part of this, except he gets there and it turns out his whole family got killed by stormtroopers. Guess what, Luke, you're going on an adventure whether you like it or not. In a way, I would argue that the main character trying to take those pills to prevent him from getting an erection is almost him trying to perform the threshold guardian role upon himself, or engaging in the act of the refusal of the call to adventure.
Okay. Because there's really nothing else trying to get in his way.
Yeah.
I'm glad you answered that, because I was going to say there is none.
That there were no threshold guardians.
Yeah.
Or there's also just there's still societal inhibitions on the nudist beach itself. You're not supposed to get an erection. You're supposed to be cool about it, man.
But that doesn't really present itself with him because of the tent.
Yeah.
So he's not really even scolded about having an erection. The teacher's just like...
No, the teacher does. She's like, that's unacceptable behavior. You have to...
Yeah. But it's very superficial where it's like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Go in there and have sex. That's not... I don't think it's stopping him in any way. It's what literally gets him to his character development.
Okay. So what is the... I pointed out what I thought it was, but what would you consider the passing of the threshold, exiting the normal world into the supernatural world of
the willingness
myth?
of all the women who want to have sex with him?
I was going to say it's a moment where he first enters the tent. Because a lot of times it's like passing... In a lot of monomythic stories, or a lot of stories that are framed by the monomyth, it's... Sometimes it can be literally going from one area to another, like in, I think it happens in the Never-Ending Story, where they have to literally cross some kind of threshold. But also in this one, he's passing the threshold even from the nudist beach to the tent, to the world where people are no longer...
He's allowed to have sex.
Yeah, where people are no longer engaging in the inhibitions that society usually places upon them. I think this one's a little obvious, but who do you think plays the role of the mentor? Who is Obi-Wan Kenobi in this story? Or Virgil in
I wouldn't say it's
Divine
the
Comedy?
teacher. Is that who you think?
I think it's a teacher because she is the one that seems to... It's almost kind of implied that she does know some of this stuff is going to happen. She's the one that...
She does know, yeah. No, she does.
She's like, I expected some of you were going to get erections, so this is why I set this up.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't play the mentor role to the protagonist as much as she does to the other boys in the class.
Because I was going to say some of the other girls play the mentor role.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, not so much. More so than the teacher.
Would they play the role of the mentor or the role of the helpers? Because Luke Skywalker, once again going to like the monomythic story that everybody knows, also has Chewbacca, R2-D2, Princess Leia, Han Solo.
Yeah. I guess. I think some of the girls are definitely taking over mentor, and also some other girls are doing the companion, because I still think more so than the teacher. Some of the students. What next?
Oh, Daestra and Kafkan Tom said he got that big dick energy, as well as the stamina. Oh, Darryl said it's not stamina because no matter who you are, everybody goes through a refractory period. He was unusually hard. That was his power.
Yeah.
Even at the end, he literally says, "My balls are on fire," from going so many times. Obviously, you could argue that this isn't true because he said it himself. But I remember reading Ozzy Osbourne's autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously it might have been ghostwritten by somebody else, but him telling the biographer his story.
Probably ghostwritten.
Yeah. I don't know. You don't know how good Ozzy Osbourne still has to write the lyrics.
Yeah, but you've heard him speak.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's saying at all.
You can hear him perfectly when he's singing, though. And those lyrics are pretty good.
Can you hear him perfectly when he's singing?
Yeah. Finish with my woman because she couldn't help me with my mind. That's pretty clear. Anyways, in his biography, he talks about like the first time I think they're touring in the U.S. And he talks about like the first time he ever experienced groupies and women throwing themselves at him. And he mentions that I think that he had sex with 5 women in a row because literally one would leave and his manager or somebody would point another woman to his door. And he was like, by the 5th time, I swear to God, I'm ejaculating water. But he was able to get it up and go 5 times, possibly due to the influence of cocaine. I'm not saying that's true, but well, While some men probably aren't able to do that, it is possible for some men to go quite often, probably not 24 times in a row.
It's definitely
Yeah.
not the norm. And he says by the 5th time he's like, you know, what you just said. But not 24 times.
Yes.
Even if he had just done it once with each girl. No. It's not happening.
He didn't do the whole class.
He missed
Nah.
one girl.
The funny girl.
One, though.
So in this story, what would you argue are the challenges and temptations that the protagonist faces on his heroic journey?
Hold up. What?
Trials and temptations?
That he's getting? He's literally has no trials. He's giving in to all of the temptations.
Hold on, let me catch up with the chat real quick. Tom said, just like Star Wars with the implied incest.
Again. She's only seen her dad's penis hurt.
And Daestra said, can we just stop and admire for a moment that we're making parallels between Star Wars and hentai? So that's what happens when you engage in things academically, Daestra. I'm using Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces as my premise. Unfortunately, I don't have my copy of the book in front of me. It's at my parents' house, because a lot of my books are still there. And at some point I have to go pick them all up. Darryl said, shots fired. It's not healthy, kids. Daisy said, well, you'd just be shooting air by that point. Did they have Gatorade back then? Tom said he doesn't always write the lyrics. Planet Caravan, he just started improvising with a random guitar melody. Yo Man Howells, is the author supposed to show how virile he is? And then Daestra said his trial is getting over his shame. And Darryl said, biding time, eh, Josh? I do think he has trials. I think every sexual interaction with the girls presents some, not necessarily destroying the Death Star level climactic battles or trials and tribulations.
But there's a climax either way.
Yeah, I mean, there's the literal physical climax, yes, but there's also the element of a lot of these girls have some sort of I guess societal inhibition within them. So there's obviously you have the girl who's like, am I a slut because I like boys? There's the girl who's like, I'm a virgin, I've never done this before. The girl who's like, I want to engage in all these different wild sexual activities, but I don't want people to think differently of me. You know, the girl with the middle part hair.
Sure.
Yeah. I only read this 3 times, so I don't have the names memorized.
You only read it 3 times.
I've told you this before. If I'm going to talk about something, I always read it 3 times.
I read it once and got to the point where okay, keep going.
Yeah, I read everything 3 times. The first time is to get an understanding of the plot. The second time is to develop what I think about it, and the third time is to actually take notes and start to formulate theses or hypotheses about what I'm reading.
Because I do remember you telling everybody in class this, and everybody looking at you like you were some sort of alien. Some people hadn't even read the text, and you'd read it 3 times.
That's how you're able to generate good discussion about things. Is you're reading something once isn't it can give you the ability to talk about something, but I think you should always read something more than once. Obviously, I'm not shaming you because I gave you this morning. Because I was still deciding up until like last night exactly which author I wanted to talk about.
Also, I wasn't going to read this 3 times. I'm sorry.
I know, you didn't even read Paradise Lost.
Look, I read part of it. Let's continue. Get back to focus.
And when I would argue that there are trials and tribulations in not only finding out how to be sexually compatible with each character, but as well as helping them or helping himself overcome some kind of societal inhibition through the act of sexual intercourse.
I guess, sure. I just don't think those were very hard.
I would argue something was hard in those trials.
Yes, something was hard in those trials. I just don't think those were very hard trials themselves. I'm
glad Yusuf is keeping the nut counter like I was talking about. My personal best is 8 rounds within 24 hours. This main character is an absolute unit, busts 6 nuts before Chapter 3's conclusion. Personal best is 7, got me beat by 1 fam, her, climax. What time do you start note-taking? Like I said, sometimes I'll start taking notes around the second time I read something. But usually I will save that for I guess the second time is probably around when I start writing notes. But they won't be like concrete notes, they'll just be like little observations I have. I've read this too many times to count, but I've read it once.
I second. I'm not trying to be mean about it though, because it does
Yeah.
exactly what it's meant to
Yes.
do. It's definitely a perfect text for what it is. It's just not.
When we're looking at it literarily, we're looking at it differently than typically what it is meant for.
Yeah.
But it has plot and it has literary elements, and therefore it can be put under the scrutiny
I
of
guess
literature.
it was just, just compared to some of the other things we've read, some of the other things have been so much, even just, I don't know how to say it, deeper,
Mhm.
or just they have so much more substance than this did.
I think you would have liked it better if I had picked Rocket Monkey to talk about, even though you might not have liked the plots.
Well,
Rocket Monkey was the one where it has the mom and the daughter.
Oh yeah, I told you that I was
Yeah.
gonna. I told you that would have been easy to talk about.
So we're still talking about the hero's journey. What would you consider the moment of revelation, the abyss, the death and rebirth within this story? There's one definite revelation within the story.
Yeah, that he didn't take the pills.
Not that he didn't take the pills, but that this whole situation was partially set up by the
Oh.
other class president.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one is a chart. There's a lot more that goes into this, because I think there's 17 primary elements of the monomyth, and not necessarily every story has all of them. So I know there's like reconciliation with the father in the belly of the whale, all those other ones. What about the moment of transformation? I think there's one definite moment of transformation that I wrote down. And I have the specific page because I was...
Were you thinking about this when you were reading it?
Yes.
I think that's why you're having such an easy time at it, because I wasn't thinking about this when I was reading it.
I told you around the third time I was reading this, I was like, oh my god, Joseph Campbell's monomyth.
I keep thinking you're going to say JoJo instead of Joseph.
Jojo.
Um,
Unfortunately, Campbell does not start with the word Joe. So unfortunately, Joseph Campbell is not a JoJo or a Joe Star. That I know of. He might have a middle name that starts with Joe.
So Darryl, in comparison to the last subject, what comes short? So like the last one we read,
Milfew?
yeah. I don't know. I just really liked Milfew more. I think it seemed more. It seemed like it was more than just characters fucking each other. To me, when I was reading this, it seemed like it was all just about the characters fucking each other, and the other one seemed a little more to it. Like characters had a little more conflict and resolution and all of that kind of stuff. What are you smiling about?
Yeah, I was looking for the moment that I wrote down.
Tom said the tent is the belly of the whale.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote that down too.
You nerds.
Joseph Campbell is very useful for when it comes to talking about literature, at least in a very basic manner.
Is that how you took it out? Because
yeah,
maybe you could have warned me and be like, refresh yourself on this. Watch The Lion King again. What are you looking for then?
The exact moment where I wrote down Joseph Campbell's moment of apotheosis.
Do you have a page?
Yeah, page 217, but I also was about to... Did we guys already talk about Shindal? No, I was going to save that one for the last episode of this season. So episode 26 is when I want to talk about emergence or metamorphosis. I was when you caught me laughing, it's because I was scrolling through the pages and there was this one really... on page 195. I saw that as I was scrolling through the pages. And it's a moment where she confesses her love to him and his penis gets hard and the condom pops off and flies across the room. And all the girls are looking at it with a surprised look on their face.
Because at that point they're all in the tent.
Yeah.
It just became...
They've all let go of their inhibitions.
Okay.
What else is there? Most of them have seen at least one or the other person have sex. They've all heard it. They all know they've all had sex with the same person. I'm not saying this would happen in real life, but at this point, even logically within the story, that doesn't seem unusual. Yeah, I would argue the moment of transformation or apotheosis within the story happens on page 217. Or I guess it might also be considered, I don't know if that's the moment of atonement. Yeah, it's page 217.
I'm never gonna get there.
He says, I share a bond with all the girls now. I've heard out their feelings and their hopes. So I'm sorry, but I really can't fully commit myself to you straight away. However, right now, one thing I can say for sure is that I love you, Akiho. I put that down as a moment of apotheosis/transformation because he, having gone through the trials and tribulations of the story, comes away with a different perspective than he had before. And that is
that if all the other girls are still willing to keep having sex with him, he doesn't want to commit to one person.
No, that he has a unique relationship with everybody, having let go of his sexual inhibitions. I guess you could look at it that way. But I would argue in a more heroic manner. That's how I would phrase it.
Who's the anti-hero here?
I don't think this story has an anti-hero. This is a man.
Anti-hero is always the more interesting character.
If you were to put like the traditional literary antagonist, isn't this more man versus society than man versus man, or man versus nature?
Yeah.
So he and many of the other girls in the story leave now, I guess, with a more sense of sexual liberation as well as a closer bond of friendship.
Daestra makes a good point. That tent must be very, very funky by that point when everyone's in there. Imagine how hot and gross it would be and smell.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my, that would be disgusting.
It's going to smell like semen and vaginas.
And they're at the beach.
And sweat.
So they're already... And it's going to be full of sand. Imagine having sex with all of that sand. Somebody in there got some STDs.
I think the story ends kind of right there. I'm not sure there's a good moment of like atonement.
Okay, Josh.
And it definitely does not have the return to the old world, although it is implied that they will have to return to normal society at some point.
Daestra said the girl is kind of the anti-hero if you think about it. Do you think?
I guess so, but I guess it's also, you could argue that she's also struggling with her own sexual inhibitions, where she felt that she had to manipulate a situation in order to have sex with somebody she wanted to get to know better and have sex with. You may even argue that she is... Oh, yeah. Obviously, in the real world, yes. That you would be a predator for engaging in many of these things.
Daestra said, I thought people loved sex on the beach. Daestra said, the drink. Tom said, it's hot, coarse, and gets everywhere. Anakin is the true hero. I don't see how sex on the beach could be enjoyable.
There's sand everywhere.
Yeah.
And as Tom said, it's hot and it's coarse and it gets everywhere. I think, if anything, we've discovered that this story has a lot of correlations to Star Wars. Should I ask like the usual questions I ask at the end, or do you think you wouldn't be able to come up with like a good answer for them?
I think we went over it, and pretty well with comparing it to the hero's journey.
Yeah. Would you think any ideas about human sexuality, psychology, or relationships were emerged through reading this text?
I'm sure there were. If you really think about it hard.
Well, I think we did find one actual one that really is there. And that's when I was reading this, I did kind of make a connection to Mizuruke when we read Mizuruke Land. And you remember that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was that idea that we all go out through our day-to-day lives with a lot of these inhibitions that we have, and if we're willing to let go of them, perhaps we could lead a better, more fulfilling existence if we're able to move past those inhibitions that we have. Specifically in the case of
But you know what?
hentai, it's sexual inhibition.
I think, and I liked that one more than this one, and I think part of it is because all of those people choose to be in that position.
Yes.
These kids didn't. These kids kind of get shoved into this saying, if you go to this place, you're going to end up being expelled. They're forced into the situation, and then, the boys are kind of taking advantage of it, although they can't, or the boys are trying to take advantage of it, even though they can. The girls end up all having sex with one guy, so in the end it doesn't turn out terrible, but that's only because this is a hentai.
Yeah.
But really, they're there not wanting to at the beginning. Maybe that's part of why I didn't like it from the beginning.
But Daestra wants me to write an official university paper on the correlation between Star Wars, class trip to the Nudist beach.
You should.
If I can get my copy of A Hero's Journey back sometime soon, I guess I could. Well, what do you think about that idea, though? Just the idea of not necessarily, other than nudism, which is the means which this happens through in this story. What do you think it is that people could do, perhaps, to let go of inhibitions they think they have sexually that hold them back? To put more of a realistic spin on this.
I mean, I think if you're trying to get over those inhibitions, to just slowly start doing things out of your comfort zone is really the most straightforward way of looking at it. Is that what you were asking?
Kind of, yeah. Like, what would you say to somebody who feels like that girl who's like, is there something wrong with me if I'm always looking at men and admiring their bodies?
Oh, then I'd have a sit down and talk with her and be like, look, this is what society is trying to make you think just because you have opinions and thoughts by yourself and of what you want and what you would like. None of that makes you any less of a person, or none of those make any of those thoughts invalid or anything like that. That's what I would do, but I don't know.
What about for the male protagonist before the story happens, where he thinks that there is some aspect of him that needs to be controlled, like his sexual? Do you think it's the same answer?
I think it's the same thing. Like you don't know until you explore all of that. As long as you're doing it in a safe and a consensual, with a safe and consensual relationship, you know, I think you just need to go explore little by little until you see what you like and what you do and whatever. And I'm sure part of why he feels like that is because he doesn't have any sort of experience. So he just goes out and has sex 24 times.
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
I think it's implied that with some of them, they keep switching back and forth.
Yeah. But it's pretty much the same, just everybody has to go through the realization that their thoughts aren't invalid, even though it's not the norm.
Darryl said drinking is how you get over those inhibitions.
I think just once you realize that it's not, unless it's real nasty shit like necrophilia, you know.
I would argue in a way engaging with a text like this can be helpful.
Sure.
Because it's I guess even not necessarily with necrophilia specifically, but I think sometimes people have unusual sexual urges, and finding an outlet for them is better than perhaps trying to constantly suppress what you have.
Yeah. My point is that suppression is never the answer. Just little by little exploring and seeing where your boundaries are with somebody that also wants to explore and see where their boundaries are, where there's, you know.
There should always be an aspect of consent to it.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? What you got to throw at me?
Oh, Daestra was also asking, does Japan really not have nude beaches, considering it's a big island cluster?
I'm sure there is.
As well as, well, as Tom and we pointed out earlier too, they have hot springs. Hot springs and bathhouses, although that's usually same sex. Usually it's going to be men naked in a room or in a hot spring together. Although I think mixed ones are not necessarily as common, but they are a thing. Oh, Anna was saying that you should be free to try to explore what you're interested in, unless it's something like necrophilia, maybe.
I'm saying you shouldn't go and fuck dead bodies.
Yeah.
You should not.
140 Days of Sodom, the manga win. You know, I would not be surprised if that was not already a thing. The fucking Marquis de Sade. Justine and 120 Days of Sodom. You see, you felt like there wasn't a lot to talk about, but we managed to get a whole hour and 45 minutes out of this.
It's a lot longer than I was expecting. That is true.
And maybe some of that was just our own reader engagement with the text, and not necessarily the text itself, but I do think the text is a vehicle for which we come to...
That's only because we're trying real hard.
I don't think we're trying that hard. I came with a lot of this already prepared. This is legitimately what this made me think of. Now I have to write a paper about the correlation between the use of the monomyth in erotic Japanese comics.
Well, have fun with that.
Yeah, well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Hentai Literature Club. I'm not going to tell you to do all that usual YouTube stuff. That's not necessarily my style, but I will say if it's your first time here or your first time watching a video like this, I would highly recommend joining our Discord. I believe the link to that one that's currently posted, can I point at it? Where is it? Maybe right there? Oh, hold on. I think I got it.
Daestra wants to know who's next in the list of artists.
Who's next on the list of artists? So,
or are we going to do tags again too?
After episode 26, I want to get back to doing tags specifically.
I liked doing tags.
But the artist I still have on the table, there's Rocket Monkey, there's Marui Maru, and obviously the last one is going to be Shindal. And there was two other ones I thought, I can't remember what their names are, but there was two that I found, or I guess there's three more. There's 5 potential artists, of the 2 that I remember being Rocket Monkey and Marui Maru. One of them I was interested in because they tend to use like a very specific story type that they like, and the other 2 because they do specific fetishes, none of them which are particularly gross or unusual, I think, but are definitely within the realm of fetishes you don't see often in real life.
Shimina said, I will not be here for Shindal. I wish I could pick not to be here for Shindal. Maybe, you should pick somebody else to...
Yes, Rebus is on that list as well, as one of the potential ones I could talk about. But yeah, if this is one of your first times here, I'd recommend joining our Discord. I believe that link that is posted up in the corner would lead you to the front lobby. Yeah, join us, come hang out with us, come talk with us. And also make suggestions. If anybody has suggestions for artists or tags you'd like us to talk about, you can do that either in like the comments of a video, or you can do that in the Discord. Or if our email should be linked there somewhere in the description, you could email us. But other than that, thank you for joining us. I think we've had a fun time.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you, and good morning, or good night, or good afternoon.
And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.